Okay, welcome everybody. I'm going to go get started. My name is Dr. Jihan Chobanoglu. I'm the president of Association of North America Higher Education International. I also am a professor at the University of South Florida, Sarasota Community, and I also serve as the director of the M3 Center for Hospital Technology and Innovation. It is our great pleasure to welcome distinguished speakers today to a panel about academic peer reviewing. We will get that started in a second, and I will introduce the moderator. But before I do that, I would like to go over some quick housekeeping items with you and also talk to you a little bit about the organization in about 2-3 minutes here. So I would like to, here you go, just share with you, again, welcome. Depending upon where you are, just like our panelists, distinguished panelists here, that you may be in a place that's morning or afternoon or night. So good night, good evening, good afternoon to all of you. I would like to just talk to you. I know that people are starting to come, and I see quite a few participants already logged in. Just a quick housekeeping item that in your computer or mobile phone that you are connecting to through Zoom. Of course, if you're on Facebook, you don't need to do this, but I will also talk about that too. If you can hear us, if you please click on the raise hand. Right here on the screen, there is a raise hand. If you please do that, that will give us an idea that you are hearing us. Wonderful. I see a lot of hands coming up. We appreciated that. That's great. So that means that our voice and the video should be coming nicely to you. Also, you will see in your control boxes, there is a chat and question and answer section. This is where you can interact with the panelists here. I know that Dr. Ali, our moderator, has prepared wonderful questions for our panelists, but in case in which we also encourage you to ask any questions to our panelists, please communicate through here, question and answer and chat. Also, if you're on Facebook, please make sure that you can write on the comment section there, which is going to, again, we will read them and we will give them to our speakers. So the Association of North America Higher Education International is a not-for-profit organization, and the mission is to promote and encourage a global culture at member institutions. By the way, we have more than 5,000 members now from 114 countries, which is amazing. And we also aim to globalize student and faculty successes, enhance global initiatives, just like this webinar here, which is provided to public free of charge, again, as part of the not-for-profit mission. Also, ANAHEI has a variety of different programs. We just started a new program called Research in 3 Minutes, again, for academics to present their minutes in 3 minutes to the layman terms, Visiting Scholars Program, partnership programs with different universities around the world. And we also have 2 open access journals, IBA Journal, which is the International Interdisciplinary Business Advancement Journal, and we also have Journal of Global Education and Research. These are true open access journals. Doesn't cost any money to submit an article or publish an article. We do this all out of volunteering, just like this panel is going to talk about. We also have a variety of different conferences. The 2 of them are here. That's the one that's coming up next month in Las Vegas, Global Conference on Education and Research, and the one we are going to host on our beautiful campus here at the University of South Florida, Sarasota Community. That's the Global Conference on Business and Economics. We also have awards, distinguished lecture series, and webinars just like this one. You can see a lot of this information at anahei.org, ANAHEI.org. I also would like to thank University of South Florida, Sarasota Community, and also the M3 Center, which I proudly serve as the director, and then Dr. Ali is serving as a research associate there. We would like to do that. This webinar and all the previous webinars that we have conducted, if you would like to see them after the fact, that the links are going to be here. So please feel free to go to anahei.org/webinars. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Dr. Faizan Ali. He is the assistant professor in the College of Hospitality and Tourism Leadership, also the assistant editor methodology for the International Journal of Contemporary Hospitality Management, coordinating editor for International Journal of Hospitality Management, and associate editor of the IBA Journal, which I told you earlier, IBA Journal, and also he is the director of research methods and statistics for ANAHEI. Dr. Ali, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jihan. Once again, welcome to all the attendees who are from wherever they are, like from whichever part of the world they are. And thank you to all the panelists for agreeing to be part of this wonderful panel discussion. Now, I just want to tell you how did this idea came through, and that was I received a couple of awards for best reviewer, and then after that, I got questions from a few people like, what do you do when you review a paper, or how do you look at that? So I thought maybe it's a good way to start this panel discussion and actually invite some of the experienced reviewers who I know that review probably 10 to 15 papers a month, I guess. And not only people who review, but people who also edit journals. So then we can ask them different questions and it may serve our discipline in a broader way. So I would like to introduce the panelists very quickly. We have Dr. Stan. He is sort of a loyal speaker boards of 30 other journals. Now his bio is very detailed. I'm not going to go into all the details, but it's all available on the internet, so you can read them. The second speaker we have is Dr. Ulrike Gretzel. We call her Dr. Uli in short form. You can also call her Dr. Gretzel, or you suit yourself, whichever is easy for you to pronounce. Now, Dr. Gretzel is currently a senior fellow at the Center of Public Relations at University of Southern California, and also serves as the director of research at Netnographica, which is a market research company, which extracts insights from online conversations. Now, we have is Dr. Ulrike Gretzel. Okay, and then Dr. Gretzel, she has reviewed for over 50 journals, including some of the top tier journals in hospitality, tourism, services, and also something related to computer-human interaction. The third speaker we have is Dr. Metin Kozak. He serves as the professor and dean of the Reha Midilli Foka Tourism faculty at Dokuz Eol University in Turkey. He has published a wider range of articles in top tier journals, and he also serves on editorial boards of 20 journals, including some of the best journals in hospitality and tourism. Now, Dr. Matin is also editor, co-editor for Anatolia, which is an upcoming and rising journal in hospitality and tourism research. Last but not least, Dr. Marissa Orlowski, I hope I pronounce it correct this time, at least. So Dr. Marissa is an assistant professor at University of Central Florida, which is right near us in Orlando. Her research interests are in domain of food and beverage, and she is currently working on multiple things. She is sort of jack of all trades at USF, serves on different committees and different things. But what's interesting is that she is acting as an assistant editor for International Journal of Contemporary Hospitality Management. And in that capacity, we invited her today to talk to us about this journal and how did it go up and how do they select the reviewers and all those things. So that's all about our panelists. With that, we will start the discussion. Now, I just want to quickly tell you how would this work. So we have a list of questions. I prepared these in consultation with some of the people who wanted to get answers for these questions. So I'll post a question, or I'll just read it out, and then each of the panelists can take a couple of minutes to answer that question according to your own experiences or according to your own thinking. Is that okay? All right. Okay, so let's start it. Now, one thing which always comes up, and this is probably one of the most commonly asked questions for related to peer reviewing or academic peer reviewing, and that is, it's a tedious job. We all know it takes a lot of time to review papers in the right, but then reviewers often ask, what do I get for it? I mean, I give my time for nothing. Is there any benefit for me to accept an invitation and review a paper? So maybe we can go with Dr. Matin.
Okay, yes. Well, I've been in this business almost for 20 years, and I got this question from many of my colleagues asking why I am reviewing the papers for different journals. without getting any benefits, financial benefits. As we know, there is no system yet that has been created to pay any financial benefits for anyone doing reviews for different journals. Okay, there might be some benefits, some little amount of benefits for different purposes, like, when you are reviewing book proposals and so on, they can pay you a little amount of money, but in reality for the journals, there is no benefits, no financial or economic benefits. The only benefit that we get is the psychological, okay, which is, the thing that helps us to upgrade our knowledge in the field, and also to learn, to learn about different subjects in our field. So this is what I have learned in my, in my responsibility for reviewing papers for almost more than 30 or 40 different journals in different fields in the world. So I can summarize that this is a kind of motivation for us to meet our professional obligations or responsibilities, and also to upgrade our knowledge in the field.
Thank you, Dr. Mateen. So I would move to Marissa. Marissa, what do you think? Why would you, or what's the benefit for you in reviewing papers?
I would agree with a lot of that. I think that, it's not about a monetary benefit, but it's a learning experience. As a junior faculty member, coming out of a PhD program, the papers that I saw were finished. You only, when you're reading papers and reading articles and working through your dissertation, you only see what's done. You don't see through the work in progress. So being able to review allows me to sort of experience papers as they go through the review, as they go through the process, and what I'm able to learn from that and become better at writing myself, become better at developing my own papers, I find to be hugely helpful. And so, that for me is the benefit that I get from it.
All right, thank you, Marissa. So, Uli, what do you think? What's the benefit for you in reviewing papers for academic journals?
Yeah, that's a question I ask myself every day when I get an invitation. Well, first of all, as people have said, you get to actually engage with the literature before anybody else will. So you are on top of the literature. You see what other people are working on. So that benefits your own career. But also you are working with editors in the journals where you will actually be publishing your research as well. So it's a great experience to really, establish a working relationship, also be known in the field as someone who actually does a lot of work, has very good insights, and can help. But then also, I think it's really helping me with my teaching as well. I teach research methods. And so I see a lot of issues, but also for teaching PhD students, what are the issues with writing a literature review? Why are papers rejected? Why do people not understand certain issues? So I think that's really important as well.
Thank you very much. Stan, so coming to you with the same question, what would be your response to it?
Well, I can probably say that the benefits are on several levels. First, I can say that I personally receive great satisfaction that I have actually, that through participating in the review process, I contribute to the advancement of knowledge. This is one thing. Also, as the other panelists already said very correctly, this reviewing papers actually helps in my own research, improving in terms of methodology, in terms of argumentation, or sometimes even as simple as academic writing. I review many papers a year, 50, 70, last year there were 106. So it's a heavy weight, but this is what we all need to do for the sake of science.
All right, thank you. So if I just summarize all the responses, so I think if I take it correctly from all of you, it is true that there are benefits, even though they are not monetary benefits, but there are benefits reviewing papers for academic journals on different levels. So for some of you, it's personal satisfaction. For some of you, it's professional obligation and satisfaction. It helps you to understand and advance the discipline, understand the literature, and also helps you with your day-to-day activities as faculty members, like teaching or research, and at times in service as well. All right, thank you very much. Okay, so let's move on to the second question. And that is, again, something which when I was working towards my PhD dissertation, my supervisors and advisors actually asked me to review for some of the journals. And when I asked them why, they said, because it can help you to write by yourself. So I just want to put this question out there and ask you, do you think that if you review for high quality journals, you can learn to write high quality papers? So let's move to Marissa. Marissa, what do you think?
Absolutely, 100%. I think that, you know, whether it's a turn of phrase, whether it's a way of writing results, you know, in a very concise and straightforward way, whether it's a way of explaining a theory, maybe, and again, to, you know, Dr. Uli's point, if it's something that's in your field, maybe someone's using a similar theory, but they're explaining in a way that you didn't understand, or now you can look at it in a different way. Yeah, seeing high quality work, 100 absolutely can help you produce high quality work.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Marissa. So, Dr. Mateen, what is your take on this?
Well, actually, I think this must be a very challenging question that may change for different persons. So for myself, for example, I started publishing in high quality journals, and then I started reviewing papers for high quality journals. So it starts from the other side, okay, up and side down. To me, I think it depends on the person. Okay, if he or she has any capability of, you know, writing good quality papers, and depends on, you know, their career. Okay, it depends on their, you know, position in their career. So it may help them to write good quality papers for good quality journals if they have ground from the right side of their academic career. Okay, so this, you know, totally depends on their potential. Okay. Potential and background.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Mateen. Stan, what is your take on this?
I completely agree with Mateen that it all depends on the person, because most researchers will actually benefit from reviewing high quality papers for high quality journals, but there are also other people for whom there will be a little benefit. But I think in general, the answer will be positive.
Okay, thank you. And Uli, what is your take on this question?
Well, actually, every journal has a different language. So it's almost like, you know, you need to learn that language of
Hello.
Yeah.
I think we lost Uli.
in the language of a journal. And can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, sorry.
A moment, yeah.
I just said, you know, you can read the papers in a journal to learn about the journal, but reviewing also keeps you honest, because, you know, there's a deadline. It keeps you on track. It exposes you to a lot more paper. And as Marissa has said, it exposes you to papers that are also not good, right? You see also which papers are rejected. So you see what is not acceptable.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. So again, if I summarize it, I would say that according to your collective wisdom, it really depends on the person, on the type of paper or the type of journal. It can be beneficial, not always, but it gives you a good overview of what is a good paper versus what is a bad paper, and give you different perspectives of looking at things. All right. Okay. Thank you very much with these answers. All right. So let's go back to the third question. And this question is related to what Stan just said. Stan said he reviewed 106 papers last year. Now that's amazing. So Stan, I would start with you. And the question would be, how much is enough? You know, at times I get review invitations, especially if editors are your friends and you do have a lot of them in your inbox which are not completed yet. Is there a limit? Can I say no to people? What do you think about this?
Well, what I personally do is that I do queue management. So I don't set a limit about how many papers I can review per year, but how many I can have in the queue. So I try to have not more than 5, 6 waiting. What I say no to rarely, but I do say no. And this is only in few occasions when the paper is not in my research profile, or when it is a new submission and the time allowed for the review is something like 1 or 2 weeks, which is too little. Too short. It's too short time for review. But I'm also an editor, and I'm also on the other side, and I know how hard it is to find reviewers and to persuade reviewers to complete a review. So that I try also to give back to the community by reviewing articles. But yes, sometimes we need to say no. Sometimes it's better to say no rather than accept an invitation and then not to submit the review.
Right. Thank you, Stan. So Marissa, what is your take on this?
I'm kind of on the same page. First of all, I've certainly not been asked to review nearly as many articles as Stan. But I think that, again, I think it's about time management and accepting what you know that you can finish, rather than saying yes to something and then getting to a month down the road and you hit the deadline and then saying, oh, wait, I can't do that, or, oh, I need another month, because that upsets the entire queue and the entire process of the journal itself. I know that for me, you know, the only time that I've said no to something is when the topic I felt was so out of the scope for me that I didn't feel comfortable reviewing it. You know, I felt that I wasn't the appropriate person. I was honored to be asked, but didn't feel that I would be able to give an appropriate review. And that was my response back. It wasn't a timing thing. It was I don't think I can do the review justice.
Okay. Okay, yeah, it makes sense. Thank you, Marissa. So, Uli, what is your take on this question?
Yeah, pretty much the same. I mean, I'm up there in the 100 categories, so it's just impossible. So if it's not my topic, I just can't. Also, if it's a journal that I have never published in, I'm less inclined. I would also say that journals allow you to set times when you're not available. So sometimes I know, you know, I'm going to have surgery or I'm going to get married or whatever, and I do block out times so that the editors know I'm not available, so that I don't, you know, get the invitations and have to say no, because that's all work for editors. I'm on the editor side as well. But in general, I think it's those formulas that I have heard about, you know, 3 reviews for every published paper, that's just nonsense. I think you cannot quantify that. It depends on whether this is a stream of research to which you want to contribute, then you should, you know, feel inclined to review, but sometimes there are limits.
All right. Thank you, Uli. Dr. Mateen, what is your take on this?
Well, this is also, you know, the very difficult job for myself, both as the editor and also the reviewer. Usually, if the person is a reviewer, I never want to, you know, invite any person for the paper review. But I am the reviewer, I am the editor, and I receive so many invitations from different journals. I think I didn't count, but there might be at least 10 papers now on my desktop to finish for, you know, review. I usually review, you know, 5 or 6 papers on average every month, so, plus conference papers, book proposals, and some other things like thesis and so on. So this is very difficult, but the field needs us. Like, Stan, I also follow him on Facebook. We need more people to review papers, to improve the quality of our research and also the journals. So that is my responsibility for my field, for my profession.
All right, thank you. So to summarize the responses, I would say that it's mainly about how do you manage the whole thing, and not only manage it after you get the review invitations, but rather before you actually get them, to see how much you can do. And it's completely fine to say no as far as you have a proper reason to say no, which can be either the topic is not related to what you are doing, either the journals are not exactly where you publish or related to your field, and ignore the formulas and stuff, but you can review as much as you can to contribute to discipline, right?
Can I add to that, that also if you say no, usually the journals now allow you to make suggestions of alternative reviewers, so you can also help the editor by doing that.
All right, thank you very much, Uli. All right, so let's see. Now, this is also another interesting topic, considering that this plagiarism issue is getting really, high, and many people are getting involved into plagiarism. So let's say if you get an invitation, you accept it, and you are reviewing the paper, and then you realize that you have seen that text somewhere, or if the text is sort of plagiarized, is it your responsibility to actually write it in your review, or is it editor's responsibility to check it before sending it out for review? So Uli, what do you think about this?
I think it's both. I mean, the editors now try, and they have different tools usually at their disposal, but those are not foolproof. So if you have a doubt, even if it's just a doubt and you are not sure, and you should alarm the editor, and they will take it.
Okay, all right, thank you. Stan, what do you think? Because I see on your Facebook, you are like really hard.
Well, I can show you this one. Do you see it?
Yes.
Okay, this is how disputes on plagiarism should be solved.
Okay.
In other words, plagiarism is successful harakiri. You can do it only once. So this is my opinion. In the European Journal of Tourism Research, I check every single paper before being sent out for review. So if a paper is sent for review, it is definitely checked for plagiarism, and I found nothing serious. However, as a reviewer, I also check. So if I am somewhere in the loop as an editor or reviewer, definitely the paper will be checked for plagiarism. I think I agree with Dr. Uli that it needs to be on both sides, because we rely on systems, but sometimes, sometimes the text is just translation from another language which Turnitin or Authenticate cannot catch, but we as we all speak different languages, and we can catch expressions that are not quite native in English.
Right. Thank you, Stan. So, Dr. Mateen, what do you think about this as a review?
Well, my answer is very short. I think it's better to take a note for the authors and also inform the editor about the situation.
All right.
That the paper can be rejected.
All right.
It's rejected.
Right. Marissa, what is your take on this?
Agree. I mean, and when you submit the review, there's always that confidential comments to editor box. So if you are not necessarily comfortable or not positive, it's an issue. You don't want to put it in the review itself. You can always put a note there that says, I think this is a concern. And then you've alerted the editor. And if the editor wants to run it, at that point, go to one of the tools that they might have. But there's lots of different ways as a review at your disposal to at least raise your concerns.
Right. Thank you. So I think it's sort of a unanimous response, and that is, as a reviewer, you should look for it, and you should alarm the editor at least to tell him that, if you did not, please go into the system and check the plagiarism. All right, thank you. So in total, I have a list of 13 questions. We have gone through 4. So I'm thinking we'll go through another 2, and then there are a few questions on Facebook and Zoom from the attendees, so we can take a couple of questions from there. All right, so something similar related to ethical issues, and that is, let's say if you get a paper to review and then you feel that you know the author. I mean, you're not sure, but you just feel that you know the author. In that case, what should you do? Should you tell the editor that you are not able to review it because you feel you know the author, or what's the best strategy in that case? So Stan, what is your take on this?
Well, I was thinking a lot on this question, and I think that there are 50 shades of gray in this question, because it all depends on the level of certainty. So if I know that, if I'm certain about the author, definitely I will decline to review, and I will inform. And as was previously recommended, I will probably suggest another reviewer to help the editor. But if it is just an idea, I can have many ideas. So
Okay.
probably I will accept the review. But I haven't been in such a situation. At least I don't remember.
All right. So Uli, what is your take on this question?
Oh, it happens to me all the time, but I think our field is small, and then if you're in a field like tourism and technology, how can you not know? And it says, the research was done at a university in Florida, so that limits the options. But I think the issue is not knowing. The issue is whether you have a conflict of interest. So do you have a very close friendship with that person, or is that someone who you absolutely hate? Or were you maybe involved in the research at some point? So those are different levels of potential conflict. And it's only when I have a conflict of interest that I will inform the editor. And it is then up to the editor to tell me, go ahead, I trust you, or okay, I will look for someone else. But I think also as scholars in general, when we grade students, we also have to kind of like put the personal stuff aside. So I think it's also a way of learning to not let that influence your judgment. So have I rejected papers of my friends? Yes, I have, because it doesn't matter.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Uli. Dr. Mateen, what would you say about this?
Well, this is, I think it depends on how certain I am about the name of the person. If I am sure 100%, then I can return paper to the editor. So I did a couple of times in the past.
Okay. All right. Okay. So Marissa, what is your take on this? I
haven't run into this yet, but I'll be honest. I think Uli really touched on all the points that I was going to raise about, level of potential conflict, and even the point I was going to say the same thing about students, and we do the same thing with students. So, yeah.
Right. So, so I get it, and I do exactly the same. I get papers to review where I feel I know the people, but it's fine. I think if I summarize, it's mainly about conflict of interest, if you are involved in the research or not. If not, it also comes to you as a person. Are you an ethical person? Are you going to do a good job or not? So, all right. Okay. Thank you very much. So let's see. And this happened to me a few times, so I just wanted to bring it up here. So let's say you review a paper, you reject the paper, or let's say you suggest a major revision with detailed suggestions or whatever. And a month later, you get the same paper from another journal to review without any changes done to the paper. So as a reviewer, what would you do in that case? Dr. Mateen.
Sorry, well, your question is about?
My question is, let's say you receive a paper to review and you review it quite in detail, either reject or give major revision to the paper. And then after a month or maybe 15 days, you get the same paper from another journal to review, but there are no changes made in the paper. So,
okay, yeah. This is also what we do sometimes, for our own papers. So what I can do is it's exactly the same paper, and there is no, improvement in terms of revisions. So it might be better for myself to suggest authors to take into consideration my previous comments and then do a submission. I can also inform the editor about the situation of the paper.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Mateen. Stan, what do you think?
I will do absolutely the same.
Okay. The same thing. Thank you. Uli, what is your take on this?
Yeah, definitely inform the editor that, this was reviewed before, and hear the review comments, and it still hasn't changed. But I would just say whatever I had to say again to the authors, but I would, in those comments to the editor, inform them that was.
All right. Thank you. And Marissa, what is your take?
Same. I would basically provide the same review and then let the editor know that I've actually already reviewed this paper and this is my recommendation before, this is my recommendation again.
Sure. Thank you very much. So it's pretty unanimous that you would, and this is what I did. So I thought it's a copy paste, so I copy pasted my comments as well, and let the editor know that this is what happened. All right. So for all the attendees, I'll put forward another question, and after that I'll take your questions. I see there are a few questions. If you have any more questions, just post them up on the Zoom or on Facebook. All right. So now let's go with the fifth one. If let's say as an editor, let's put your editor cap on, and you want to send out a paper to a reviewer and you have to select a reviewer. So what are the things you are looking for in a particular reviewer before sending the invitation? Uli?
Expertise, domain expertise. But then I think Dr. Kozak has already said it. If you if you know that person is an editor, I will probably be very reluctant to send them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you kind of, who's doing what and whether they have just moved into a new position. But if I'm not certain, I also might just contact the person and send them a letter up front before I send the invitation. And but yes, if someone has done a bad job reviewing for me before, I will be very reluctant to send them.
Okay. All right. So thank you, Uli. Stan, what is your take on this?
Usually what I'm looking at a reviewer is the expertise, the field, but also the quality of the reviews that the person has previously prepared, and of course, time management.
Okay. So how timely are the reviews and everything?
Yes,
right?
exactly. So it's necessary. The authors do not want to wait for 4 or 5 months.
Right. Marissa, what is your take on this?
I know that with IGCHM, the associate editors, the managing editors look for a combination of expertise in the topic, as well as, again, timeliness. If they've reviewed for the journal before, are they submitting reviews on time? Are they showing a willingness to accept reviews? Those are really the main, the main things.
All right. Okay. And Dr. Mateen, what do you think about this?
Well, I also agree with all the speakers, but there's one more thing to add, which is I can also look at the journals that they publish the papers. It's also important. So this is what I'm doing for Anatolia.
Okay. All right. So got it. Okay. So if I summarize it, it's mainly the expertise of the reviewer, your past experience with the reviewer in terms of how timely were the reviews submitted, where did they submit their papers, their quality, timeliness, and all those type of things.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, so let's move on to some of the questions. So there's a question by one of the attendees, and it says that with all your experience, do you have any tips about the length or depth of the reviews you write? I often feel that mine are too short or too long. Is there a general rule of thumb? So Uli, what do you think about this?
It depends on the field a little bit. Like in consumer research, for example, the reviews might be like 40 pages, 50 pages. From my perspective, that's too long because you're actually writing a paper. But I also see very short reviews that are just not useful at all. So I think the golden middle is that you have to say whatever you need to say. You don't need to write an essay. You don't need to write beautiful prose. But there's definitely a too short. If a review is one sentence, it's just not fair. That's not good feedback. If you say things like, I don't like this, that's not enough. You need to justify, and that requires more than one sentence.
All right, thank you, Uli. Okay, so Stan, what do you think?
Well, there's no golden rule. It is, but of course, each half a page is too short. It needs to be justified. So the decision needs to be justified. Sometimes half a page may probably be enough if it is a pure rejection because of poor methodology or plagiarism. But well, I can't say. I can't definitely say. My reviews are usually between 1 and 2 pages maximum. Within range, which probably some might consider as too short, some might consider as too long. I've written also shorter and longer, but something within this range.
All right. Okay. Marissa, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know that there's an exact page count that I would say is too much or too little. I think it's more about how you write it, you know, and how useful it can be to the authors that it's going back to. I think when reviews are to the point, sometimes literally bullet pointed or numbered. Here, if it's a major revision, here are the specific things that need to be addressed. Boom, boom, you know, point by point by point, so that an author can navigate their way through that and make those revisions. And an editor, managing editor, you know, can look at reviews in tandem and understand what holistically needs to be done to a paper to make a decision. Those are when the reviews are useful. And that might be a page, that might be 2 pages. If it's like, you know, if it's might be a half a page, it might be 3 pages. That all depends on what needs to be done to the specific paper.
Right. Thank you, Marissa. Dr. Martin, do you have to say anything about this?
Well, I think it depends. This also depends on the quality of submissions. You know, sometimes it depends also, you know, the type of journals the paper is coming from. I usually start, you know, writing my reports, you know, let's say with no more, you know, not less than 300 or 400, you know, words, which is about almost 1 page. But it can go up to 2 or 3 pages depending on the quality.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. Okay, so there's another question, and that is on Facebook. So very interesting, and that is for those who are actually reviewing more than 100 papers. So it's while evaluating so many papers, I wonder how to keep the balance in your work and family life balance. Allocating so much time to extra work versus your duties and responsibilities towards your organization. What do you think about this? So Stan, since you were the leader in that club, I would just go to you.
If you consider this as a work, it will be a burden. If you consider this as something that gives you pleasure, that you have contributed somehow to the research community, then it's not work. But don't tell this to our rector.
I got it. Thank you very much, Stan. Uli, you are the second one, right? Since you said the numbers, I'll just come to you then.
Yeah. I was only able to do it because the last few years I was commuting between Canada and Australia, so that involves very long flights and nothing else to do. So instead of watching a movie, I was reviewing papers. But I think it's also a question of how fast can you read, how fast can you process. It's a challenge because you don't want to do it instead of actually working on your research. So I do it when I'm kind of in the middle of things, in between things, when I can slot in something.
Okay.
That's when it happens.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Dr. Mateen, what do you say about this?
Well, I agree with this person. This is a challenging issue, so it is not easy to keep your balance between your work and life, private life. So what I'm doing is I usually do reviews almost after midnight before I go to sleep or at weekends. When I was preparing a presentation last year, I recognized that the people in medicine in the United States usually complete their reviews for the papers from Friday to Sunday, so which is the end of the week and the weekend. So this is how it was difficult to keep the balance. But they are the medicine people, so they have to work during the week time, and they can do extra work during the weekend. Otherwise, we cannot keep the wheel going on in the discipline.
Got it. Thank you, Dr. Mateen. Marissa, what do you say if you go and join that club?
Oh gosh. I think that with trying to find any type of work-life balance, it is about fitting things in where you can, and attempting to create some sort of schedule and attempting to stick to it. But, fitting things in and, when you figure out roughly how long it might take you to review an article, looking at your day and saying, when can I do this? I know where the pockets in my day are. I do plan out, when I accept a review, I don't know when exactly I'm going to do it, but I can look at a week and go, okay, I'm going to do it this week. This is what I've got going on. This is where it fits in. And so as I continue to accept more, that's how it works.
Thank you very much. So let's move along the list of the questions that I have, and then we'll see if there are some more questions towards the end because of the time constraints. So, okay, this is interesting. So let's say if you get a paper from somebody, and we already established that sometimes you know who the authors are. If you get a paper from someone who is your colleague at the same college where you are working, what are you going to do in that case? Or someone who is from a college where you intend to apply very soon for a job. In these both cases, what are you going to do? So I'll go with Stan. Stan, what do you think?
Well, I think, for the first case, to receive a manuscript for review that comes from the same university, I think this is a mistake of the editor.
Okay.
So the editor must have never sent this paper first. So definitely there is a conflict of interest in this case. And definitely I will decline to review it. Regarding the second case, I don't, probably there's probably a definite, probably there's a conflict of interest, but I'm not sure how I will do in this case, because I'm not sure this will actually influence the way I will evaluate the paper.
I got it. Thank you, Stan. So Marissa, what is your take on this?
So for the first scenario, I would only bring the issue up to the editor if I absolutely 100% knew for sure. And I'll be honest, we have a lot of faculty at Rosen College, so there's pretty good odds I wouldn't know that it was one of my colleagues in particular. So only if I absolutely could say for certain that it was one of my colleagues would I kick it back. Otherwise, I'd move forward with the review. In the second scenario, again, I'm not sure if I would know. I would really have to absolutely know. And even then, I'm not in the market. So, I don't know that I would. I'm just trying to, I'm having a hard time imagining how that scenario would play out.
Okay.
That I would be able to know for certain that I'm reviewing a paper for a place that I'm applying at. There's a lot of variables there. So again, unless I knew 100% absolutely that I thought it was a conflict of interest somehow.
Mm-hmm.
But really the conflict of interest to me would come on the other side, because it would somehow potentially, like if I gave the paper a bad review and somehow I don't get the job, that would mean they would know that I reviewed the paper.
Mm-hmm.
And that's more on the other side of it than really affecting me. So
all right, thank you.
That second one is a big deal.
Got it. Thank you, Marissa. So, Dr. Mateen, what is your take on this question?
Well, as a person who has published, a couple of papers on bargaining, I think the first thing that I can do is start bargaining. If I am going to be accepted into the job, so I can, accept the paper for publication. So this is just shocking. Well, I'm not sure if I don't know how I recognize that the paper is coming from the the department or institution that for I'm applying for a position. So I'm not sure about this situation, but for the the person who might be in my same department or college. So I did return the paper. I didn't accept.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. So Uli, coming to you, I would just give you the first scenario because second one is not realistic. So I'll just leave the first one out there. So let's say if you get a paper to review from someone from your own college or department, what would be your strategy to deal with it?
Yeah, right back to the editor and saying there must have been a mistake. But for the second one, I mean, it only is a plausible scenario if you know that it's from that college and if you tell them, right? And I think that's an ethical question. As a reviewer, you don't tell. You might tell when the paper is published and say, okay, that was good. I was a reviewer. But during the process, that's I think a given that you don't talk about the papers you review.
Got it. Thank you very much for all the responses. Okay, so there's another very interesting question, and I have heard a lot of stories related to this, and that is, as a reviewer, especially if you're a professor or associate professor, is it acceptable to get somebody else to review the paper, most probably your students or someone, and claim credit for it?
No.
Okay, so Stan.
Absolutely no. Absolutely no. It's personal job.
Okay, it's
no outsourcing allowed.
Okay, all right. Dr. Mateen, what is your take on this?
So, what kind of student
So let's say if you have a PhD student or a graduate student and you ask them to review the paper because...
Well, yeah, I can. If they publish, good papers in good journals, even then, as a PhD student, I can invite them. Well, my first position as a reviewer was for tourism management in 2000. It was the end of my PhD. I did my PhD, so it was the time that my paper was accepted for tourism management. I received an invitation almost 6 months later from Chris Ryan to review a paper. So it was my first experience.
Okay. No, but the question is, yeah. So the question is if, and this is okay, in my opinion, if you ask a PhD student to review a paper, but do you think if your PhD student reviews a paper and then you submit that review to the journal, is that something acceptable?
Yes.
Okay. So do you think we should also notify the editor that a student has reviewed the paper, or?
You mean on behalf of yourself?
Yes.
The main reviewer?
Yes.
So it depends, no, well,
no.
For Anatolia, I got only one case. I don't remember how long it was, but one of the reviewers invited his PhD student. He was informed that it was not his own review report, so it was. I accepted it. There was no problem, but I don't know. So it depends on the person.
Okay, all right. Uli, what is your take on this question?
It's actually very common in the sciences where people run big labs, and some of the computer science conferences, for example, I review for. They actually have a slot there where you can indicate I have appointed a sub-reviewer, and so that it depends on the field. So it's not necessarily uncommon, but it's usually indicated. But also, how are PhD students supposed to learn how to review if your advisor doesn't work with you? And so I have a policy that I jointly review with my PhD students sometimes if I think it's in the area, but I would never just submit their review. I write my own review, I compare it with their review, maybe they made a good point, I put that into my review, and then it's going to be a joint submission.
All right. Thank you, Uli. So Marissa, what is your take on this?
I think those are the distinctions, right? It's one thing to work with a PhD student side by side as a teaching moment and you review the paper together, or if there's a mechanism in place to indicate that you have used a sub-reviewer or that you have, done something along those lines. It's another situation completely that I think crosses the lines of ethics to accept a review in your name, farm the work out to someone else, to a grad student, have them do it independent, and then you just take it and pass it off as your own work. I think the first scenario, team teaching moments, those things are fine. The second scenario is not okay.
All right. Thank you. So it brings me to two related questions based on the responses. One is, do you think it's the right way where hospitality and tourism or hospitality tourism technology as a discipline should push towards some changes in the review process where actually advisors can work with their PhD students and then PhD students can claim some credit for it? Because right now, some of the journals, they don't actually take PhD students as reviewers. And then let's say if a PhD student work with an advisor to do this, as Uli said, or as Marissa said, there's no way for the PhD student to claim something for that work he has put in. He can't put it on CV, he can't do anything of this except for the personal gain he is getting from that whole experience. So Stan, what do you think?
Yeah, probably we may discuss in this direction. I haven't thought about this scenario because I perceive the review process as quite personal, because the editor invited the reviewer on the basis of his or her expertise.
Mm-hmm.
So if I want to invite someone else, fine, I will invite that person if I know him or her.
Okay.
I can't make a definite decision.
Right. Uli, what is your take on this, since you said that it's a good way to work?
I think it would definitely help. I think if the student could get credit for it, that would be great.
Okay. Now, because the time is limited, so I'll go with Marissa and Dr. Mateen with another question, and that is, if you get something to review and you are not sure about some of the parts of the paper, let's say your expertise is in a particular topic like destination image or food and beverage, but you are not an expert about the methodology which is used in the paper, right? And this is also a similar question is there on Facebook too. So is it okay if you try to reach out to somebody who you think is good at that particular method and use their suggestion in your review? What do you think, Marissa?
I don't know about that. I would focus on the areas in which my strengths were. I would read the whole paper, or I focus on the areas that I'm the strongest in. I would obviously, if maybe I'm not as strong in certain areas of the methodology or some of the specific statistics, it doesn't mean I don't read that, but that's maybe not where I focus my review. I think that's also why we have multiple reviewers for papers. I think, I think that when editors are looking for reviewers, if the paper's on destination marketing, they're also looking potentially for a reviewer who is strong in the methodology that the authors have used. So, I'm hoping that there's someone else who's reviewing that maybe is strong in that methodology and is going to cover that, and may not be as strong in the content, the literature area. And so the reviews are going to balance each other out. And that's the approach that I take, rather than trying to bring in a third party who wasn't asked to be part of the review process. Because there are going to be 2 or 3 reviewers that are looking at the paper, and the 2 or 3 of us together should be able to cover all those bases.
Got it. Thank you, Marissa. Dr. Mateen, what do you think about this?
Well, this might be the case. I think usually when the person may not have any, personal practice or knowledge about research methods. Well, this is my personal experience. So in that case, it can be acceptable to ask for somebody who is more knowledgeable about research methods, like statistics. Sometimes it might be difficult, even for myself. So I know everything about destination image, let's say branding and so on, but no idea about how we can use different types of methods, to test our results. So it may happen. Well, but I can also suggest for the future is I think we can think about collaborative, a kind of collaboration for review among 2 or 3 different people and to write a single report.
Okay.
So like in sciences, so we can do the same in social sciences. It may improve the quality of, the submissions, also the quality of your reports.
Thank you, Dr. Mateen. It's definitely helpful. So now what I'm trying to do is trying to mix the questions on the list with some of the questions on Facebook and Zoom. And I think we just can go with 1 or 2 more questions since the time is almost over. I would say the last question from my side would be, let's say if we put you back in time, 15 years, 20 years in the back, okay, Marissa, that may not exactly be applicable to you, but for others. So as an early researcher, if you go back, what would be something that you would advise yourself or all the early researchers who are thinking to get into the peer review? Stan, what do you think?
Well, definitely I would not change the way I did the things with the journal and with the reviews. I would tell my previous self to be even more bold in his own decisions and not to hesitate.
Okay. Now it's to be very confident and
Exactly.
straightforward with whatever. Okay. All right. Dr. Mateen, what do you?
So even just to clarify your question, as a kind of the author, reviewer, or the editor?
Well, as kind of reviewer, so I mean, let's say if there are some young people who are interested in peer review, what would be your suggestion or advice to them?
Okay, so